Valentine's Day, right? Cards, chocolates, the usual.
Ah,
But on this deep dive, we're going way beyond that. We're looking at history, culture, all that. We even got some wild modern stuff. Like, you might actually rethink this whole holiday after this.
it's really interesting, right? For such a traditional holiday, there's so much mystery surrounding it. You wouldn't think that.
Yeah, like, who even was St. Valentine? I mean, we've got multiple St. Valentines here, all recognized by the Catholic Church, and it's all pretty murky, to be honest.
It really is. It's almost like trying to put together a puzzle, but like some pieces are just missing.
Right.
But there's this one story. I mean, it really stands out, even if, the history might be a little iffy.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So the legend is that Valentine was this priest back in 3rd century Rome. And get this, he defied the emperor. The emperor had banned marriage for young soldiers, but Valentine, he believed in love so strongly that he kept performing these secret marriages, even though it meant, well, death.
Wow. Talk about standing up for what you believe in. I mean, that's putting it all on the line.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you think, right? Like, do we still defy norms for love today? I mean, think about it.
It's a really good question, actually. It's definitely worth thinking about, especially as we, dig deeper into how Valentine's Day evolved.
Totally. Okay, but before we get to all that, we got to talk about what was going on in Rome even before Valentine's Day.
Right. Lupercalia. Yeah, quite different from our Valentine's Day, to say the least.
Different? That might be an understatement. So we've got these sources describing this crazy ancient Roman festival, celebrated February 15th, and it was basically a giant wild fertility party dedicated to Faunus, this Roman god of agriculture, and get this, also to Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome.
It involved, well, some pretty intense rituals. I mean, picture this. Priests are sacrificing animals. Then they use strips of goat hide dipped in the sacrificial blood, and they'd whip people with them, even the fields. Like, they believed that would make everyone and everything more fertile.
Whoa. Whipping people with goat hide for fertility.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not exactly chocolates and roses, but I guess it shows you, right, like how strong that desire for connection and love really is. I mean, maybe those Romans were just, using some different methods to find love.
That's a good way to put it. And later in the day, they even had this matchmaking lottery. Like, bachelors would pick women's names from a big urn. They'd be paired up for the whole year. And, often that actually led to marriage.
Wow, basically ancient Tinder. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but hold on. If this Lupercalia was so popular, what happened to it? Why did it disappear?
Well, as the Roman Empire became more Christian, Lupercalia started being seen as way too pagan, like not fitting in at all. So eventually, late 5th century, Pope Gelasius actually outlawed it. And guess what? He declared February 14th as St. Valentine's Day.
So they just replaced a wild fertility fest with a day named after a romantic and, like martyr. That's a huge shift.
Yeah, it wasn't an overnight change, of course. It took a while for Valentine's Day to be all about romantic love, but some interesting stuff happened along the way.
And this is where it gets interesting. One of our sources mentions that in the Middle Ages, people, get this, they believed that February 14th was the start of birds' mating season.
Exactly. And that just made the connection between the date and love even stronger. So it kind of paved the way for Valentine's Day to become, this celebration of romantic love.
So we can thank the birds for all this romance.
So
But how do we go from, like, birds mating to love letters and poems? Was it always about, the romance?
Not really. You see, we kind of have Geoffrey Chaucer to thank for that.
Wait, Chaucer? Like the Canterbury Tales guy?
The one and only. His poem, Parliament of Fowls, written back in 1375, it's considered the first time we see St. Valentine's Day celebrated as this romantic holiday. And then there's this amazing piece of history, the oldest Valentine we have. It's a poem from 1415, written by the Duke of Orleans to his wife while he was locked up in the Tower of London.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. To think that back then they were already expressing their love, so creatively. And it still survives. It's really moving when you think about it.
It really is. It shows you that love, that desire to connect with someone deeply. It's timeless,
Absolutely. So we've gone from ancient Roman fertility rituals to medieval love poems. It's amazing how Valentine's Day has mixed all these, well, kind of different things into the holiday we know today.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's still so much more to uncover about Valentine's Day. I mean, we've got the symbols, the modern celebrations. It's a whole world.
Okay, so symbols.
Yeah.
Right. We can't talk about Valentine's Day without talking about Cupid. That little cherub with the arrows. Most people, they just know him from Valentine's Day cards.
Yeah.
But his story is way more Well, complex than you'd think.
Oh, absolutely. Cupid's roots, I mean, they go way back to Greek mythology. Originally, he was Eros, like the Greek god of love.
So not just some, like, cute baby with wings.
Nope, not at all. In ancient Greece, Eros, he was this handsome immortal. He had these arrows, golden ones that could, like, make people fall in love. But then he also had lead arrows. Those could actually make people, well, not fall in love. Yeah. He could really manipulate emotions. It's pretty wild.
Whoa. So he wasn't always shooting arrows of love. He could actually, like, make you not fall in love. That's a pretty powerful, maybe even dangerous ability.
Exactly. It wasn't until later, the Hellenistic period, that Eros started being portrayed as that, mischievous, chubby kid we see on Valentine's Day cards.
I wonder why that happened. What made them change his image so much?
It's hard to say for sure, but it probably reflects like a shift in how they thought about love and desire back then. Maybe in the Hellenistic period, Eros's image, it softened a bit. Like they emphasized the playful, innocent side of love more than the intense, maybe even destructive side.
That is fascinating. Even mythological figures change over time. It's like they reflect the culture, how values and beliefs change. Okay, but let's get back to, well, to today. How did Valentine's Day become this, like, global thing?
Well, I mean, it's celebrated in tons of countries, the US, Canada, Mexico, the UK, France, Australia, you name it. It really started to take off in the 17th century over in Great Britain. By the 18th century, it was totally normal for people to exchange little gifts or like write notes to each other on Valentine's Day. Didn't matter what social class you were.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about our Canadian neighbors? Do they, like, go all out with the big gestures, or is it different there?
Canadians, they mostly celebrate the same way as in the US. Printed cards, those became popular there around the 1900s. Kind of an easier way to express your feelings, especially back then when, people weren't as open about that stuff. They really embraced the idea of showing love and affection. And even though cards are still big, gift giving has really expanded. It's chocolates, jewelry, even lingerie now.
Ooh la la. Sounds like they're spicing things up.
They are. But, even with those differences, it seems like we're just scratching the surface when it comes to modern Valentine's Day gifts. Our sources, I mean, they show a whole bunch of trends and traditions.
Let's get into it. First up, the classic Valentine's Day card. No surprise there, I guess. Seems like over half of people still go for cards. And they often, personalize them with photos or write their own poems.
Yeah, and personalized gifts in general, that's a big trend. Whether it's like a romantic collage or something custom made, those gifts, they're special. It's like saying, hey, I really see you and appreciate you.
Oh, that's sweet. It really shows you care. Okay, but we can't forget about chocolate. I mean, almost half of people go for that classic heart-shaped box of chocolate.
It's a classic for a reason. Who can resist a heart-shaped box full of chocolate?
I know I can't. And for those who are, more traditional romantics, flowers are still a huge hit. Like, our sources say about a third of people choose roses, lilies, tulips, even sunflowers now.
All great choices. And of course, the romantic dinner date. About 35% of couples go for that, whether it's at home or some fancy restaurant.
Nothing like a nice candlelit dinner with your sweetheart.
Yeah.
But our sources also mention some, well, maybe less traditional gifts that are getting more popular now, like clothing, for example. A quarter of people are choosing that.
Yeah, it's a nice way to show you care about their style, And if you can't decide, gift vouchers, always a safe bet. Seems like about 12% go for that.
True, that way they can pick out exactly what they want. Oh, and we can't forget about houseplants. That's a big trend now, too.
Yeah, houseplants are great. I mean, they last way longer than flowers, and they bring, some life into the home.
Plus, they kind of symbolize growth and nurturing, which, fits right in with Valentine's Day. Our sources also mention perfume and jewelry as popular choices.
Perfume can be tricky, but if you know what your partner likes, it shows you really pay attention. And jewelry, well, it's classic. A symbol of love and commitment.
It's incredible how many different Valentine's Day gift options there are now. But beyond the gifts themselves, our research really shows, like, a shift towards appreciating all the people you care about, not just romantic partners.
It's a really nice thought, isn't it? Valentine's Day shouldn't be limited to just, romantic relationships. It's a chance to show love and kindness to everyone who's important to us.
It really makes you think, like maybe we should all celebrate Valentine's Day a little differently.
I think so, yeah. I mean, why not spread the love around a little bit?
Exactly. Speaking of spreading the love, remember that, well, kind of unusual gift idea our sources talked about, the whole gifting wills thing?
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. It definitely got some interesting reactions from us, that's for sure. It's definitely not your typical Valentine's Day gift. But then again, it does say, I care about you, like, a lot, even after I'm gone.
Yeah, it is kind of out there. But I
Yes.
get it. It's a powerful statement.
It really challenges how we think about Valentine's Day. Like, is it really romantic? Or is it just, well, too practical for a day that's supposed to be about lovey-dovey stuff? What do you think?
Honestly, I'm not sure I'd want to get a will for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
But I get the idea.
Hmm.
Makes you think about, like, all the different ways we can show we care.
For sure. And that's what's so cool about Valentine's Day. It's this mix of history, myths, and, how society changes. It really makes you wonder what it's all about deep down.
Yeah. I think for me, it comes down to connection. Like wanting to connect with people on a deeper level. It could be romantic love,
Yeah.
family, friendships, even just being kind to strangers.
I like that. It's about seeing and appreciating those connections, the ones that make us feel loved and supported.
And there's so many ways to do that. A
Yeah.
phone call, a handwritten note, a meal together, even just spending time with someone. It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, totally. It's really amazing how Valentine's Day keeps changing with every generation, even though it's been around for so long.
You know what? That actually makes me wonder if Valentine's Day has already changed so much, what will it be like in the future?
That's a great question. Think about it. Could it become even more inclusive? Like celebrating all kinds of relationships, not just romantic ones.
Right. What if it was less about romantic love and more about, I don't know, all the important relationships? Family, friends, mentors, even ourselves. What would that even look like?
I think it'd be awesome. Imagine a day where you just appreciate everyone who makes your life better. Celebrating connections, of all kinds.
That's a beautiful thought. It makes me excited to see what happens with Valentine's Day. Well, that wraps up our deep dive, and now we want to hear from you. What did you think? What really stood out to you about Valentine's Day, and what do you hope it'll be like in the future?
Yeah. Tell us what you think, share your own traditions, and let's keep talking about this. And remember, whether you're celebrating with your sweetheart, your family, your friends, or just taking care of yourself, happy Valentine's Day.